It sort of sounds like brand authenticity would be a way to describe that, right? So if it doesn't fit,
Yeah.
then it's not going to stick.
And people also toss around brand authenticity. I know you're not like it's like culture, right? It's like they say that word, but it's this like I truly believe, and maybe I'm a romantic here, Kevin. Like brand authenticity is like you get out there and you say the shit that's going to offend people because you care about it. Your CEO is out there talking about you know no more political. I mean, I think we're all tired of political speak, right, or
Right.
any kind of spin. Just tell me the truth and tell me, hey, you know what, we're going to lose some money here, but this is the right thing to do, and there's no strings attached. There's no, I think people are just desperate for someone just to tell them straight. Here's what we're doing. It's going to hurt us. This is the right thing to do, period. No spin. We're no agenda here. And I think there's not enough of that. And I think what's actually interesting, Kevin, I read this article that the future state of like how we're going to fix a lot of the issues in this country because of the way Washington is not going to be through our politicians because of the constant like state of, uh,
Gridlock.
gridlock. Thank you. That was where I was
Yeah.
looking for gridlock that they have. It's going to be corporations. And you're starting to see that, right? Like the irony, you're going to see for-profit corporations partner with nonprofits, partner with NGOs, partner with other organizations to actually make change. You're already seeing that. You see people like Howard Schultz make a difference. You see Jamie Dimon. Like you're going to see people who are going to like say, you know what, we're going to make it start now. Reed Hastings at Netflix. Like I actually think that it will be the future when you get the right leaders in place. Even Bezos, right? Who are going to make a difference with their checkbooks and their wallets because they can. And that, to me, is brand authenticity. And I think you're going to start to see that in spades over the next 10, 15 years because clearly Washington is going to continue this cycle, right?
You're right.
And I'm not picking a party side. I'm saying
No,
across
it's
the board, we're all fed up. And that's why we're here where we are. Look at this. This is a ridiculous, Kevin. Like nothing's going to get done, no matter who's the president, right? It's
yeah.
obvious because they're all children. So it's time for the rest of us out here to say, you know what? We have the capability. Let's go make a difference. And to me, that's brand authenticity. And you're going to do it even if you piss off some people.
Yeah, one of the areas I've noticed it happening over the last several years in particular is really the shortcomings of the educational institutions in that
Yes,
companies are starting to realize the only way we're going to get qualified employees is if we train them, right? So
exactly.
they
Exactly.
may come out with all the buzzwords on their resume, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to jump in. And so, we've seen a lot of major organizations essentially start training facilities to sort of
Yeah.
upskill the employees to
I,
be to where they need to be.
I think you're going to see a lot more like Elon Musk, Cubans, Bezos, Gates of the world, who aren't going to just be, passive CEOs. They're going to be active. They're going to be out there. They're going to take it upon themselves to create whatever they need to because they have the means, they have the way, and people are asking for it. So 100% think that's going to be a major trend. And startups too. You're seeing startups do this in their own ways, even though smaller, and that's also going to create a bigger trend, right? Because those big corporations, they pay attention to startups, even if their market share is this big, right? We all know
Right.
they do. That's why they buy them up so quickly.
So, as usual, the consumer eyeballs tend to float around to lots of different shiny objects as new platforms come out, and typically marketing and media plans have lagged wherever the consumer's eyeballs go, but they follow eventually. So, given where consumers' eyeballs have been migrating in the last couple of years, are there any channels, marketing channels that you're particularly excited about, where you're sort of see your vision of where those eyeballs are going and the ability to engage the consumers in those new places seems to be like, oh, I think I could get their attention there, or I think that I
Yeah.
can actually engage them there. Is anything sort of sticking out for you?
Well, Kev, I always think through a D2C perspective, right? So I'm always going to think towards conversion, the conversion funnel versus top of the funnel. Even though top of the funnel is critical, TV, obviously. So I think, yeah, a few. I think OTT, right, over the top will continue to be a big one, right? Whether it's through, messaging services, whether it's through the Hulu services, even on cable boxes, right? Like as more people are going back to TV with the quarantine, right? And like you're starting to see interactive TV sets and experiences. I think addressable TV will continue to become a thing. So I think there's a huge opportunity through all the smart TV penetration and OTT networks. That would be a big opportunity, and I think pretty cheap actually for what you're getting in terms of reach. I think direct mail is making a huge comeback. It has for the last few years with programmatic direct mail, where you can like pinpoint physical addresses tied to IP address of known and unknown. I think that's a massive opportunity, especially again as more people are home. What a funny thing that's happened, right, Kevin? If you think about how many things you're going paperless on, right, which makes sense. So
Yeah.
your mail used to be filled with just junk mail, and now I don't know about
Right.
you, my mail I check it once a week, but I read everything because I get less and it really cuts through. Now, guess where my junk mail is? It's my email. Email is just filled with all these things I subscribe to, and I don't pay attention to any of them. So I think this weird thing, email is still important, don't get me wrong, but it's this weird thing that's happened where all of a sudden direct mail kind of breaks through a little bit with people at home more and less shit coming through your mailbox. So
Yep.
I think direct mail, and it's getting better technology behind it, right? And I think the third one that everyone talks about influencers, and obviously we know influencers are important, but I think there's going to be a whole like spin off of what influence is. And I think influence will become very relative. And I think it needs to be as a function of loyalty. So I think how you use our loyalty program, I think the brands who get that are going to really go far, meaning it's not just spend X, get Y, right? That's the basic tenets of any mom and pop coffee shop, punch card 10, get your 11th free. But I think it's gonna be more about like, how do I get you to become an ambassador for me, right? You love my brand, Kevin. I'm not going to force you to love it. I'm going to ask you why you love it. You bought 4 times from me. Tell me what you want to see. What can we do better? What colors do you want? What scents do you want? What flavors do you want? Whatever the thing is, and then make you an ambassador, right? I'm not going to pay you, right? It's not going to be that kind of model. It's going to be like, hey, let me take care of you, make you feel a part of the brand. And by the way, we're going to do it. Like if enough of you say you want to do it, then we're going to give it to you. And I think there's so many ways, especially in D2C and technology, and I have a one-to-one relationship with you. And I think that is a marketing channel. That is the best marketing channel you can have, is having your best customers. It's old school, right? Like go tell the world. And by the way, I've done all types of performance marketing, Kevin. I can tell you the highest value customers, the most efficient customers, and one that lasts the longest are the ones that come through referrals, period, bar none, right? When you're at brunch, I want to be a brunch topic, right? When you're at brunch with your friends, family, parents, other parents, and you say, oh, I found this cool new product, Objective. I found this cool new product, whatever, and it does this, and my kids love it. That's the moment you're like, wow. And if I can turn that into one person, two people visiting, one person buying, that is far better than $70 on Facebook, $20 on Google, a couple $100 on a TV ad. Nothing's better than that. So to me, those are the 3 areas that I'm especially interested in. You probably expect me to say TikTok and shit, but like, I honestly don't think TikTok will be able to figure that out the way direct mail, OTT, and good old referrals.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you knew, but obviously did it started in the SaaS technology business. We were a bid management platform for many years and then transformed into an agency just because the economics of being a bid management platform were sort of squashed by Marin.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
we made 3 acquisitions of digital direct mail companies in the last 5 years.
Oh, cool. See,
And
you knew.
so we had obviously the challenges of keeping our direct mail factory running during COVID, and so we had to completely restructure it and create social distancing and have everybody mask up. But we saw this huge spike in response rates for direct mail for those of our clients who continued to mail during the pandemic. And obviously, we had sort of the standard hypothesis, but the way I described it to other clients who were sort of waffling about whether to mail was, listen, when you were at work and you got home after 9, 10, 11 hours and you got to that pile of mail, you were not interested in the mail at all. So the amount of time you gave it was really small. So you were more likely to throw stuff out. Now you're excited when the postal carrier arrives, because
Sure.
half of the time he's bringing something from Amazon for you that you're expecting, right? Or perhaps something from Clorox that they ordered a little while ago, right? So, it's sort of almost, made the mail delivery moment a happy moment, right? It's probably the first human you've seen all day when the mail carrier arrives.
That's true. So, that's a good point.
So we don't know exactly why, but the data is pretty solid. Like none of our clients are down; they're all up, who are doing direct mail. So, and certainly the ability to simultaneously target the identical households with programmatic is just so much fun, because the week before we mail, we have a watch your mailbox banner that goes up, and then for the week after the mail drops, we do the in case you missed it banners, right?
Smart.
And it reinforces the messaging. It's taking something really old school and like adding technology to it is a lot of fun. My next question is really about usually CPGs, they're not used to having direct relationships with customers. And obviously, your mandate is to establish one, right? And start to use channels that allow you to message on a hyper-personal level, but also sometimes have the individual's identity. And so to some extent, the identity versus privacy issue would seem to be at odds with each other. So whether it's addressable TV, where you're able to identify consumers using third-party data appends or other data sources, privacy is a huge issue. So Do you see those as sort of potentially complementary as opposed to, butting heads, the ability to sort of establish these one-to-one relationships, or do targeting that assures that the consumer really gets the most relevant and accurate ads, right? Because
Yeah.
the more you anonymize them, the less likely you are to be able to give them an ad that resonates.
For sure. So it's definitely both, right? It's 100%. You just get personalization down, like figure it out, give people what they want, and get better about adapting to based on what they're engaging and what they're not. Ask them, right? So I think that's first and foremost. But I've always taken privacy seriously, right? Before I came to a Fortune 500 company, like, even as a startup, I always thought like that's the important thing that we always have to be thinking about. Consumers are getting more and more wary. However, I'd also argue consumers aren't educated enough, right? I think there's a lot of
Right.
misinformation, a lot of like scare tactics done around like who's using your data. The elections, obviously in 2016, created this mess. Facebook has perpetuated this mess. So I think there needs to be a lot of education. I think consumers are getting smarter about it, but I think there could be a lot more education to understand, one, how exactly is my data being used by what company when. Two, those companies being very transparent and proactive about that. Three, those companies giving people an option to opt out, being very clear, like, hey, if you don't like this, we'll opt out, but we can assure you this is how it's been used. No tricky words or phrases, like being very clear and direct. And I think fourth and finally, it's really about being very honest with your brand and like saying, hey, we're not going to use this data for anything other than what we said we're going to use it for, right? With CCPA and like other initiatives happening, like that's not going to be an option. But I think the brand should get there faster by saying, hey, yeah, we could probably sneak in this email to this customer from this other brand. They didn't opt into the other brand, so they probably won't even know. But or we could just do the right thing and be ethical and say, yeah, we're not going to. We'll email them from the brand they did opt in and say, hey, if you're interested in this other brand, sign up here, right? So I just think it's like, yes, that's a nice shortcut, and sure, it's easier just to email them direct, but like at the end of the day, brands need to be transparent, forthright with the consumer, give them the options to get out, educate them on what they're using and what they're not, and then be consistent in that. And not, there's no shortcuts there. So I think the combination of consumers getting educated and brands taking responsibility for that, as well as brands also getting really good about, let me just make sure you're getting what you actually care about versus this other shit that I hope you care about because I want your dollar.
Do you think the industry as a whole should shoulder more of that educational
Yes,
responsibility? Because
for sure.
obviously, brands doing it onesie twosie, that's not going to reach
Yeah.
critical mass.
I think it does need to be an industry-wide thing for sure. No question about it. And I think there should be some centralized resources, centralized organizations helping lead that. And I think IAB's done a good job of trying to educate, ANA as well, but like it's not enough scale, right? So I think there needs to be much, much more out there. I mean, I think the benefit of the elections is it is such a high, high degree of visibility that it does create just a ripple effect of awareness. But again, because it's so significant and both parties weaponize it, it becomes like a scare tactic, right? And so like that, I think doesn't do us any service. But I think if we take advantage of that moment, and then brands and organizations can centralize those knowledge resources and really spend money against marketing and explaining to people what is being used where and what the terms mean. Yeah, I agree. I think it should be an industry-wide thing, not just like one or two big brands, for sure.
Right, right. Well, we can certainly say that 2020 was a more disruptive year than a typical year in many ways. But usually with disruption comes opportunity. So do you see any or expect any opportunities to float to the surface as a result of this disruption, other than the obvious, everyone's at home and using Zoom, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, D2C specifically, obviously, is going to continue to scale. I think we saw an acceleration of adoption. What I thought was 3 to 5 years out of the rest of the country. Right? We all know the coasts are going to be, always the first to adopt when it comes to technology. But I think you're seeing now everyone get comfortable with groceries and like things delivered to their door, like produce. So that's obvious. I do think, you're seeing more investment in education tools at home. Like people starting to really think about what education is, because no matter what happens, we're going to have some kind of variation of more education at home, right? There's going to be just a permanency of like, how can I get better about helping my kid enhance their education at home, at least for a couple of years, if there's even a hybrid of 2 days in, 3 days out kind of deal. And I think they'll be continue to evolve around video software and video technology to improve. I actually think the bandwidth, I think we're seeing a lot of the carriers get exposed a little bit, because I think a lot of people are having Wi-Fi bandwidth issues now that they were never prepared for this kind of consistent increased usage, right? Especially of high bandwidth solutions like video and streaming. So I think one of the biggest benefits will be, I think the carriers and then the networks are going to get much, much stronger over the next year, year and a half as a result of this, which to me is very exciting.
Right, right. No, admittedly, I'm in permanent startup mode, either with Did It or with Giving Forward as a nonprofit startup. So, change like this is always super exciting.